I call this meeting of the Magnolia Independent School District to order. Let the record show that a quorum of board members is present, that this meeting has been duly called, and that notice of this meeting has been posted in accordance with the Texas Open Meetings Act, Texas Government Code, Chapter 551. At this time, Kelly, will you lead us on our invocation and pledges?
Good evening. Okay. It's such an honor to pray before our meeting, so if you'd like to join me, please bow your head. Father, thank you so much for being present in this meeting with us. Thank you for every child and every family that's represented in this room. I just pray that you watch over our law enforcement, especially I pray for the families of those officers that recently lost their lives, Father. We just pray that you, for special protection over our law enforcement. And Father, for everyone that is sick in our community, I just pray that we lift them up and that you heal them. Especially I pray tonight for our good friend Becky, that's so important to our community. Father, please heal her, and she's just so important to our community. And Father, I just pray for any private need that's on anyone's heart here tonight that only you know about. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you for the hearts of the servants that are in this room. And I pray that we make great decisions for our community tonight. We pray all these things through the name of your Son, Christ Jesus. Amen.
Amen.
If you'll join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And now to our Texas flag. Honor the Texas flag.
I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible.
Thank you. I'll be seated.
All right, Ms. Engelman, is this the final list of the folks to speak tonight? All right. So, participants must have turned in a request 15 minutes prior to the start of the meeting. Participation is limited to 3 minutes. Any complaint or charge brought against an employee by name, opposition for which resolution has not been sought, in accordance with policy should be pursued through the district's grievance policy. Please note the Board of Trustees shall not deliberate, respond, or make decisions regarding any subject that is not included on the agenda as it was posted. So these are in the order that we received them. Mr. Michael Berger, parent and MISD resident.
Hi, how you doing tonight? Good to see you again. Honorable School Board and Superintendent Todd Stevens, thank you for your time today. I would like to start by reiterating that I support many of the board's goals and objectives. Specifically, I'm proud of your stewardship and ability to reduce the tax rate for the citizens of Magnolia. That is quite an accomplishment with the rising costs and technology demands of a modern education. I'm here to speak today as a father of a student, Tristan Berger, who was forced to cut his hair against his and my wishes. I feel like I've been unable to protect my son from school administration overreach. Cutting my son's hair gave me an empty feeling, like getting punched in the gut. But this could have been stopped. Instead, the school administration chose to look the other way, to pretend their policies weren't discriminatory. Not only was the decision made to enforce the policy, the decision was made to enforce it with zero tolerance. Although none of us wanted to cut his hair, the decision was forced upon us because of the extreme harshness of in-school suspension. Students typically are subjected to in-school suspension for interfering with teachers' ability to teach, unruly, disruptive, or abusive behavior. Although Tristan has had long hair for several years, it has never interfered with or disrupted education in any of his classes. On the other hand, in-school suspension severely handicapped Tristan. He has a rigorous AP schedule, many of his courses starting immediately with detailed class notes, homework, and projects. Tristan was unable to keep up with AP physics because of in-school suspension. We requested an exemption while we rebutted the discriminatory policy, but were denied. Any exemption or alternative punishment would have allowed Tristan to maintain his coursework while the policy was legally challenged, and this was not available. Almost 50 years ago, Title IX prohibited discrimination for institutions receiving federal funding. It states no person in the United States shall, on the basis of sex, be excluded from, be denied benefits, or be subject to discrimination under an education program receiving federal financial assistance. For the 2020-2021 school year, Magnolia receives $6 million in federal program revenue. Magnolia ISD must abide by Title IX because it receives federal funding. Magnolia ISD's own handbook has a non-discrimination statement in it. Its policy not to discriminate on the basis of race, religion, color, national origin, gender, or any other basis prohibited by law in providing educational services. The dress code on its face is discriminatory and cannot stand by law. It contradicts Title IX, Texas ERA, and Magnolia's own non-discrimination statement. Thank you for your time today.
Thank you for speaking. All right, next we have Donald Tadlock. I believe I said that correctly. Magnolia resident and parent.
Howdy, thank you for your time. I am Donald Tadlock, father of 3 Magnolia ISD students. I'm here on behalf of my eldest son, Tyler, a junior at Magnolia West High School, to discuss the district's sexist boy hair policy. Let me be clear, I have zero intention and will not be cutting my son's hair. As a father, it is my job to love, raise, house, feed, clothe, and defend my children. As such, I am here and I will do so. Who is Magnolia ISD to tell me how my child should look? As long as they are clean, fed, and not homeless, Magnolia has no say in my home life. The district's policy of no long hair, no hair ties, no earrings applies to boys only. This is the definition of sexism, discrimination based on sex. Girls, on the other hand, can wear earrings, have their hair as long or short as they want, with or without hair accessories. It is interesting that this policy does not apply to dresses and skirts. How does this logic flow? Boys can wear dresses but can't have long hair. The answer I have been given when communicating my concerns with district personnel is this policy has been this way a long time. Just because a policy is old doesn't make it right. Jim Crow, for example, was a law of the land for decades, but they were changed because those laws were wrong. OSHA says their biggest reason for injuries is we've always done it this way. Again, doesn't make it right. I know the hair length may not seem like a big deal, but Tyler wants to let his hair grow. He's a good kid. He has never, not once in his entire school life, been in trouble. Never had a referral, never been to the AP's office, never been in front of the principal. Never, not once. Has decent grades. He just wants to be left alone. And yet the school seems to want to harass him every morning. He misses his classes, he's stuck wrongfully and in school suspension. And for what you may wonder, not for being violent or disrespectful or causing disruptions or not even not doing his work. The simple fact that his hair is below his collar. Nothing else, just his long hair. It's ridiculous that we are wasting time with absurd sexist rules and not giving the boys respect they deserve. Girls can do mostly as they wish with their hair, but boys must comply or be punished. It is wrong and will not stand. Stop harassing my son. Thank you.
Thank you for speaking. All right, next we have Michelle Reams, resident, MISD resident.
Thank you for allowing me to speak this evening. I come to you as a resident, a very proud aunt, and as an educator as well. First, I'd like to say that the vision and mission statement for Magnolia ISD are very formidable and appropriate for where we all should expect and want our students to be. I do find it ironic, though, that the district has taken such a staunch stance on the dress and grooming code that was last revised in 2009, and that students are being denied face-to-face instruction for not following this antiquated dress and grooming code. If the vision of this district is to be the best district in the state of Texas, and your mission is to provide an educational environment that will enable all students to develop essential academic skills for a lifetime of learning, to prepare them to be responsible, contributing citizens in a diverse and changing world, then why are students being punished for wanting to express themselves in a very harmless, non-distracting way in a very diverse and changing world? I understand the need for standards and policies. I also know that policies and standards need to be revised to keep up with what's going on in society. Your policy states that you are complying with community standards. I'd like to know when these standards were established and who established them. I am a member of this community, and I do not agree with this dress and grooming code that has been adopted year after year without revision or consideration of the changes happening in our society. I also know that the American Civil Liberties Union has questioned this dress code for the past 2 years. But I'm not only a community member, I'm an educator and have been for the past 30 years. I'm appalled at this district for putting students in ISS day after day and not providing them with the quality face-to-face instructions that our students who've already lost so much learning due to the pandemic, which, as a matter of fact, we are all still facing in our daily lives today. But at this time, this district needs to get its priorities in check. We should be focused on helping these students recover what they've lost academically, emotionally, and socially. And what we should be doing is preparing them to live within a society that will never look the way it did before March of 2020. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Kitty Burkhead, parent.
My name is Kitty Walkup Burkhead. I'm the mother of 2 boys in Magnolia ISD, one at Smith and the other at Bear Branch Intermediate. I spoke on this issue at the last board meeting, and I have reached out to each of you asking that it be placed on tonight's board meeting agenda. I've been reasonable and tried opening up lines of communication with you, but I am frustrated by the lack of response and increasing enforcement of this discriminatory hair policy that has removed children from their classroom over the length of their hair. Hair length is not a distraction. The only defenses I've seen given for this hair policy is it's always been this way and it's legal. Neither of these actually show that the rule is useful or necessary. So why are you wasting the district's time and money and risking the district's reputation over this? Multiple grievances have been filed because parents aren't getting any response from those with the power to change this ridiculous rule. I'm sure school administrators have more important things to do than enforce a discriminatory rule that ends up in a grievance, further wasting their time. In years past, this hair policy has not been consistently applied. I doubt there's been an uptick in problems with long-haired boys. And since the boys with long hair are in ISS, we know they're not the ones involved in the ridiculous Devious Licks challenge. My oldest son has had long hair most of the time that he's been in school, and he has never been in trouble for any reason. He is an all A's and B's student, and he's in the district's Gifted and Talented program. Clearly, his hair length is not a hindrance to his academic performance or a behavioral problem. Even the small town my dad grew up in ended their boys-only hair policies in the 70s. I don't see how this policy is relevant 50 years later or helps the district be the best in the state. Why is hair length not a parent's choice, but wearing a mask is? A mask is easily taken on and off. Hair is not. It takes weeks, months, even years to grow to the same length. I'm not against reasonable limitations on dress, but it is not the district's business how long my child's hair is. You have the ability to change any part of the student handbook at any time. For a county that values personal liberty, it is shocking how little the district values parents' choice. It is time for the district to return their focus to educating our children and not policing their hair length. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Scott Burkhead.
So my wife and I spoke at the last meeting regarding the hair policy. We have 2 children that go to school in this district. Going into the last meeting, we honestly didn't have the expectation, but we certainly hoped that the board was made up of empathetic, knowledgeable, and caring people, that they would quickly see the utter contradiction in teaching children how to be successful and good citizens, while at the same time showing them by example that it's okay to punish and humiliate those that look different as long as it's in the rule book. Quite frankly, I am disappointed in you. So we are back again, still hoping that you are reasonable, wise, and empathetic, and that we simply misunderstood. Is that possible? Why are we still wondering over a month later? Because although numerous attempts at contact have been made by my wife to the board, looking for any comment on the matter, we're still waiting. We have hoped for any response that things are at least being considered, but nothing. What I've heard about is continued enforcement of the rule and even its recent application to some students with known disabilities. Not to mention what we already know from the well-spoken students that spoke at the last meeting that have lost opportunities because of you, because the buck stops here, right? The buck stops with you. Where I'm from, which is here, telling an autistic elementary school student who has sensory issues that he must get his hair cut is unconscionable and just mean. Let me make this clear. Especially abled, non-binary, or people who just like having long hair because that's how they feel the best about themselves, being discriminatory against them is just wrong, and it's all discrimination. As Tristan's dad said last time, come on, it's hair. They say a picture is worth 1,000 words, but what I really hope you realize is the volumes your silence speaks. And I understand why you're silent. The main responses bandied about in the past and current have been, it's legal and we can do it if we want to. It's the equivalent of bully speak, which is exactly what you're not supposed to be teaching our kids. In the end, though, do you really want to be remembered in the same light as a litany of previous discriminatory rules that were legal but still incredibly wrong? That's where we're going with this. I noticed that for the agenda tonight, there's a section regarding pending grievances. I imagine at least some of them are related to the hair policy. So here's what I picture. I picture the board asking, can we really get in trouble for this? Will it affect our funding because of clear violations of Title IX? Could we actually lose in court? What kind of blowback will there be for us? And finally, could this affect my future in politics? There's only one question that needs to be asked. The answer should be patently obvious to everyone as it is to everyone else in front of you. Should we continue, ask yourselves, should we continue discriminating against students based on how they look? If the answer is yes, then you all have a lot of soul searching to do. We're all Texans. This is the future of Texas. We're a diverse group. Please join us.
Thank you. All right, Danielle Miller, parent.
Hello, my name is Danielle Miller, and I am the proud mother of a non-binary 5th grade student. Harassment, bullying, fear, discrimination, racism, sexism, and homophobia. This is the atmosphere that Magnolia ISD and its administrators have weaved into the culture of school this year. After a year and a half of living through a pandemic and being socially isolated from their peers, this is how Magnolia ISD welcomed back our children. From teachers dehumanizing our children by forcing them to alter their appearance, to principals following children in the hallways with scissors, harassing them to cut their hair, to children being individually picked out of assemblies in front of all of their peers because of their long hair, to being put in ISS for an excess of 3 weeks because of long hair, children having to drop AP classes, to children unable to participate in lifelong sports because of their long hair. Well, actually just selected children, right guys? Magnolia ISD has somehow manipulated its teachers and administrators to participate in this culture that y'all created. And not only the teachers and the administrators, the students have now started bullying each other because of their appearance. Because why not? You taught them, it's okay. I received a response today from an open records request about Magnolia's dress and grooming code. But instead of providing me with information that is public and affecting our students, Magnolia ISD is spending money appealing my request to the Texas Attorney General's office and refusing to disclose any public information. But what are you hiding? Why not share public information instead of wasting taxpayer dollars and harming our students? Does Title IX prohibit discrimination based on gender identity? Yes, Title IX prohibits discrimination based on sexual orientation or gender identity in education programs and activities that receive federal financial assistance. This situation includes where individuals are harassed or disciplined, denied equal access to education, or otherwise treated differently because of their sexual orientation or gender identity, from the government's website. Magnolia ISD is clearly and blatantly violating Tristan's fundamental rights. My child was called an it. They were bullied in ISS by another teacher. My child was told they do not exist. Trans and non-binary people have always existed, and they always will exist. You can stay mad about it, or you can grow up. Magnolia ISD, do better. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next, we have James Nelson.
Thank you for letting me talk to you this evening. Over 2,000 years ago, the Lord Jesus Christ talked about good trees and bad trees, referring to false prophets that these days is to false people. A bad person can't produce a good fruit, and a good person can't produce a bad fruit. And there are many good things in Magnolia that need to be talked about and brought forth. I'm encouraging you to put this hair debate away. Second of all, let's talk about the IB program. The opposition would have us to believe that because it is a UN program, that it is evil and we should not adjust that program and make it into something good, which is exactly what the school board and administration has done. We have allowed our brightest and best to go to major universities because they punched that ticket and graduated from the IB program. Secondly, we've adjusted the program where they can argue their position on their beliefs about our individual rights against the Marxist doctrine that is being forced down their throat in the major universities. Now let me say this. The opposition would tell you that you can't use it because it's a Marxist program. It is. It's just a program. It doesn't have any power to do anything. It can be subverted and it can be modified into something good, which you all have done. The opposition can't show any positive results to anything they have brought out to Magnolia ISD. The only thing that they accomplished was to deny the staff at Magnolia ISD a raise. That's the only thing that they can point point to as a success. The head of this organization is the most vindictive and hateful person that I have ever come across in my life. I want to thank you for standing up to this, because we need these good programs. We need to prepare the students for what's coming, for what they're going to be facing, what they're going through. Thank you.
Thanks for coming. All right, next we have Tristan Berger.
Good evening, Honorable School Board and Superintendent Todd Stevens. Thank you for your time today. As you can see, I've cut my hair to gain the right to attend a public school. According to the policy of our district regarding the dress code, gender-based hair length regulations, and I quote, "do not manifest such an affront to students' constitutional rights." How is any affront to our rights too small? This policy applies to each student, and each student has different cultural, religious, or physical attributes. How can you say it's not such an affront to a diverse student body? It is maddening that I had to cut 18 inches off my hair in order to enjoy an education from my teacher with my peers, and not while attending in school suspension, not staring at a computer screen. I couldn't simply raise my hand to ask a question from a teacher or my peers. I had to email for clarification and wait for a response. This affected how swiftly and effectively I completed assignments, and therefore my standing academically. On another note, my hair now has distracted me more than my long hair could have ever. This hairstyle personally feels unkempt and unclean, despite the fact that the dress code allows this and intends for this hairstyle to be proper grooming. I'm requesting that the school board discusses and updates the dress code. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. Okay, next we have Mike Berger, Sr. Grandpa, all right. I see that. You made your own box, grandparent. That's right.
Board members and Dr. Stevens, I'm Mike Berger Sr., a retired secondary school principal and Tristan Berger's grandpa. I would like to get a better definition of community standards as described by the by Magnolia Independent School District. It is contradictory that several men on the dais and the district leadership team don't meet community standards as MISD has chosen to define it? Or are there different community standards for students and the rest of the community? State and federal court decisions have upheld that a student's rights don't end when they step on the school grounds. Additionally, The Texas School Board Association, where several board members have received leadership training according to their posted biographies, advises as of August 20th, 2021 that, and I quote here, "In light of the evolving law, we recommend districts refrain from including distinctions based on gender in the student dress code. As a practical matter, gender-neutral standards may be the best way to provide clear and consistent rules for campus administrators, avoid arbitrary enforcement, and promote equity for all students," end of quote. I gave you a handout if you want to look at it, and I highlighted that section. I would also like to question the pedagogical theory and motivation behind Magnolia High School's in-school suspension policies. If a parent were to limit their kid to 2 bathroom breaks a day and make them stare at a wall when they were done with their homework and email to get answers, I think Child Protective Services might be involved. In fact, when I was a school principal, if a student were to come to me and tell me their parents did that to them, I would be mandated to call CPS and let them know what's happening in that home. What's the purpose of those ISS rules? Is it to facilitate student learning, or is it just coercive and bullying tactics? After writing this speech, after last Monday's postponed meeting, my wife and I attended a home football game on Friday to watch our new shorn grandson play in the band at the halftime show. Much to our dismay, other Magnolia High School students had much longer hair than was allowed by MISD. We are specifically referring to some of the Magnolia High School varsity football players who were not only on the field playing, but had their pictures with long hair posted on the fence as we entered the game. Why weren't they unceremoniously removed from class, placed in ISS, and not allowed to participate in school activities like our grandson and a number of other students? Where's the fairness? What about equity? And is there arbitrary enforcement? I am worried, though, that I do not want this to be a battle between the football team and others. It needs to be equally enforced across the board, not just with the people that are chosen to be picked out. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next we have Jennifer Harris.
Good evening, school board members and Superintendent Stevens. Numerous attempts have been made by parents and students asking the board to place the gender discriminatory dress and grooming policy on the agenda for this school board meeting. These requests have been ignored. So I am here again this evening respectfully asking for this policy to be placed on the agenda for the next school board meeting. As parents, we are seeking an open dialogue with the school board regarding the discriminatory nature of the current policy. We have the right to question and to receive answers. So far, all we've received are excuses stating that's the way it's always been. Like I said in my email to the superintendent, the inconsistent enforcement of this policy has led to some kids being in ISS for weeks, and others allowed to keep their long hair and play football for Magnolia High School, something that I witnessed just this past Friday at the home football game. Why is my student being targeted for his hair and a student that plays high school football not? The message you are sending to your students across the district is that the school board is free to practice gender discrimination because that's the way it's always been. The mission statement for the district reads, "The mission of the Magnolia Independent School District is to provide an educational environment that will enable all students to develop essential academic skills for a lifetime of learning and to prepare students to be responsible, contributing citizens in a diverse and changing world." If you want students to be prepared to be in a diverse world, wouldn't it make sense that they themselves are allowed to be diverse? Simply saying, "This is the way it's always been," is not good enough for our students. We are looking for a fair policy for all students in this district and will continue to send emails, file complaints at the local, state, and federal level, and speak out at school board meetings until no student at MISD is discriminated against based on their gender. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, next we have Stacy Anzik.
Hi, friends. I think I can call some of you that, most of you that. I'm embarrassed by the amount of time that our district has spent responding to a small minority that are not parents in the district. Maybe they're a vocal minority, but we have had social media posts and emails and official statements from the board, and even asked Cecil Bell to go to the State Board of Education. We've spent so much time responding to that small group of people, even though they are very vocal. And yet, when parents and students came last month seeking change and emailed seeking change, there's been silence. There's been no response about the dress code. I always tell you a Ramsey story. Here's my Ramsey story for tonight. She's been disappointed, violated the dress code twice, once in kindergarten and once in January when she returned to in-person learning. Ramsey, if there was a sport for extreme rule following, she'd be an Olympic champion. There'd be no question about the gold. We're coming up on however many months that is since that time, the one time that she violated the dress code and got in trouble at school. In her mind, that's in trouble at school. And still every day, she comes out the day before, do you think this will violate the dress code? And she takes a jacket, even when it's 100 and whatever degrees outside, so that she doesn't violate the dress code and get in trouble. It needs to be reviewed, friends. I don't know if you've been back to school shopping with your kids, but it needs to be reviewed. Let guys have long hair. What's it hurting? I'm curious what last year, when we kind of gave a waiver of haircuts for COVID because it was kind of hard to get a haircut, did we have increased problems with people? Were there a bunch of long hair guys like tearing up stuff, destroying bathrooms on TikTok? No, I don't know. Was there? Ask the principals. That's all I'd like, is for you at least to consider it, talk about it. Thanks.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, next we have Ms. Ginger Russell.
Hi, good evening. I'm like, let the hair issue go. I wish y'all would spend as much time as what you're putting into our children's brain as you're concerned about the hair issue. As far as integrity and transparency in a school district, that's what I require as a taxpayer, and I am a taxpayer here. Over the last few years, we've had a fake invoice to cover up an elected official's abuse of power. We had a TRE election where you had a meeting in the morning where no one was present and tried to push it through during the summer. You were pushing critical race theory, but you sent out a blast that said you weren't. Here's the book. It's on the Barnes & Noble critical race theory list with Ibram X. Kendi, which the Magnolia librarian was promoting. You email parents and deny that the IB program is either Marxist, it promotes global citizens, and it's part of the UN. I proved to y'all last time that's not true. This week last week I find the IB Texas schools resources for parents, teachers, filled with communist Howard Zinn's resources. Now, I'm sure one of my local fellow people called y'all, and y'all had called them and took it down, and the mantra is Magnolia has never used that. Well, there's really no way of knowing, though I do know one teacher has had mock UN programs, and she promotes population control. And social emotional learning. Critical race theory is part of social emotional learning. I had a parent email me last week a letter from the counselor of Magnolia High School, and they're very upset about implementing the social emotional learning. The Republican Party passed another resolution against social emotional learning, and it's to accomplish the fourth goal of the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, and the UNESCO states that social emotional learning is the key to building global citizenship. Y'all have implemented as a character strong, and I'll do some more research on that, but I'll find a way to get this resolution out to the taxpayers. Now, as far as honesty again, here's 2 applications for Magnolia West and Magnolia High School for the IB program. On one application, you state, The formal presentation of the findings from the feasibility study was presented to the board, and the board agreed to the funding. That never happened. 6 months after this was filed, a lady, administrator, come to the school board and said, hey, this is what we're doing IB. So these documents were falsified. There was never an agreement for funding. Where's the honesty?
Thank you, Ms. Russell.
Where's the honesty and integrity on behalf of this school district?
All right. So why don't we go ahead and just take like a 5-10 minute break. I know some folks probably want to step out. You're more than welcome to stay for the rest of the agenda if you'd like. But if not, it'll give an opportunity to step out. All right, moving on to our consent agenda. This portion of the agenda consists of items to be routine and will be enacted by one motion unless separate discussion is requested. Everybody have a chance to look at the... All right. Then I need a motion that we approve consent agenda items 5A through E. Christie, seconded by Kelly. All in favor? All right. So next we have consider possible action to fill board vacancy for position number 1. So as you guys know, at the end of the last school board meeting, Kelly let us know that her intention was to step down. And so the board has the authority and ability to put somebody back in that position. They turn right around and have to run at the very next school board election. So we are going to do that. I think everybody's had a chance to see the bio. Dasha Owens is who we've talked about. And I think everybody that, if you've ever heard of MEF, then you know her name very well, and she's been very active in our schools and with a servant's heart. And so at this time, I need a motion that we appoint Dasha Owens to fill the vacancy for position number 1. Gary made the motion. Travis seconded it. All in favor? I know, Kelly, you can't vote. All in favor? So at this time, Ms. Hinkleman, will you please come forward and do the honors of administering the oath of office to Dasha? Welcome. Oh, look. Oh, wow. It's official. Well, there you go. All right, now moving on to our special presentation, Dr. Stevens.
Well, it's certainly a pleasure to get to welcome you to the board, Dasha, and I know that your tenure will be fraught with a lot of wonderful things that you're going to bring to this board, but it's not without a little bit of sorrow that we have to say goodbye to one of our outstanding trustees, and we're going to certainly miss Ms. Kelly McDonald, and I think speaking right now for the district, Kelly, I want to thank you for what you have brought, first of all, to this board, but also with your character, with your energy, with the passion that you care about teachers and students and what they learn. I thank you from the bottom of my heart and from this district of the things that you have enabled us to achieve in this district because of the energies you have brought to this board. And we appreciate you. The thing that we know is that you're going to continue to serve as a champion and an advocate for this district in whatever position you assume as a former trustee. You don't ever get to quit being, you're just a former trustee at some point. But thank you so much. We appreciate your service, and I don't know any better way to frame it. And I'm sorry, I don't have a better way to say it. But I just starting this chain, and I want to pass this over to the board president and let him continue to keep echoing some of the things that we appreciate about you.
No, I really appreciate the fact that you have a servant's heart. So not everybody that wants to speak up has our children's best interest at heart, but you always did. And so thank you for being willing to do that. And I just appreciate you.
Well, it's definitely not an easy job, and you either dive in or you don't dive in, and you dove in. So thank you so much for all your hard work.
Thank you for caring about the kiddos. I think other than motherhood, this is the second best unpaid job in the world. Although PTO was up there too, right? But thank you. I know that time, effort, talent is all put into this job, and not even paid a single dime for it. But thank you for all your effort. Oh. I'm so used to just passing it to Kelly.
Kelly, not much left to be said, but I think just regardless of what you've done on the board, and I just want to let you know how much I appreciate you as a friend, and just the friendship that we've had here on the board personally, and I know you're going to go do great things, and just as a friend, I support you and you and John and your family, and just wish you guys the best of luck, and we hope to see you here a lot, though. You can't be a stranger.
What a bittersweet moment, Kelly. We just appreciate you so much. I mean, I guess I'll just have to repeat what's already been said to get the point across, I guess, better. But we appreciate your heart, your passion, your energy, your enthusiasm. We appreciate you. And we were so blessed to serve beside you for as many years as we did. And we know we're not saying goodbye. We're saying so long, because we will stay in touch as friends, as neighbors, and look forward to all those times ahead. So your best days are ahead, and we look forward to seeing all that and being a part of it. So thank you.
All right, now for the hard part. You can come up here. Recognition of your service, it goes way beyond that. Magnolia Independent School District Board of Education, and I'll just say Magnolia at large, your presence has enriched the lives of students and served as an example to all. And I'll just add that because you've served, Magnolia ISD is a tough place. Thank you for your 5 years of service in this Magnolia.
All right, Dr. Morris is going to present the next item regarding board goals.
Ms. Owens, they did tell you it's unpaid, correct? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Adcox, members of the board. Tonight I have the privilege of kicking off a board goal discussion for this year. Obviously, this will be a multi-month process where we'll take feedback from you guys before we'll approve these in a month or two. Obviously, also, Dr. Garza and Dr. Bullock will be presenting their portions probably next month, I'm assuming, but Finance gets the stage tonight, so I will we'll go through a couple of possible board goals for you guys to consider, and then we'll look at some feedback and move on down the road. If I can figure out how to turn this thing on. There we go. Okay. So again, from 10,000 foot, the three primary goals that we will be looking at, and number one is for finance, is Magnolia ISD will manage district resources effectively. Number two, from Dr. Garza, Magnolia ISD will facilitate an environment of academic and instructional support. And number three, from Dr. Bullock and his folks, Magnolia ISD will continue to provide a safe and secure environment for students, staff, and our community. Questions on that? So let's dive a little deeper into the finance side of things without getting too far in the weeds this evening. So number one, Magnolia ISD will manage district resources effectively. One sub-goal will obviously continue to be in some capacity included, where we will maintain financial stability of the district and strive for betterment. Goal 1B will focus on financial and economic and facility planning and forecasting, and I'm going to go into deeper discussion on these in just a moment, so bless you. And goal 1C, we will continue to enhance financial transparency, okay? So goal number 1A, maintain financial stability and strive for betterment. We know that we've made strides the last 10 to 15 years as it relates to the stability of the school district. The number one indicator of financial strength, our fund balance. We're sitting at almost 3.5 months of operating expenses there. However, it's important that we continue to focus on that, in particular given the growth that we will see in the near future for student enrollment purposes. We know that our bond rating has continued to increase. We've had 2 bond rating upgrades in the last 10 years, so something that's important, but that which we will continue to focus on. The board also is keenly aware of our outstanding debt position for a district our size who is growing, our aggressive bond defeasance and refunding opportunities that we've taken advantage of, and just about any way you look at it in terms of our overall outstanding bonded indebtedness, or as it relates to debt per student or debt per assessed valuation. Obviously, we look really good in that position. So it's going to help out tremendously based on the anticipated growth that we're anticipating in the very near future, of course. In addition to that, or included in that, you know, we also know the difficult position for funding purposes that we're in, whereas we've talked about this in budget building, the only way, generally speaking, districts can increase revenue is by having more students. With tax rate compression and so forth, even the increase in property value doesn't help us on the general fund. So it's going to continue to be extremely important that we focus on non-instructional cost, and we've made some strides there in operational cost and reducing those, such as electricity, fuel, and so forth. We're going to continue to need to focus on those so we can channel dollars into the classroom. So, and I guess along those lines, as it relates to seeking alternative funding sources, we will focus on possible grants that are available. And also, and now's not the right time for this because of how we're funded with the Formula Transition Grant, but the artist formerly known as TRE is now known as the VATR, which is Voter Approved Tax Rate. And so it may be at some point in the relatively near future that we want to look at that. You know, Dr. Stevens and I were talking about this. It's sort of like, well, you know, if you want to be the best district in the state of Texas, we need to work on teacher pay. I mean, that's what we need to do. And we know that we compare well as it relates to across the state of Texas. However, in comparison to our closer peers, we're behind. And so we want this to be a primary focus of where we're shifting those dollars from that we're saving for non-instructional purposes. And obviously, any alternative funding sources that we seek needs to be focused in the classroom and on our teacher pay. Questions on that? Okay.
A quick clarification. I know it says debt position. Just wanted to clarify, that's voter-approved bond debt, right? Because we don't have any other debt.
No, that's an excellent point, Ms. Ebel. It is voter-approved debt to build facilities.
Okay, just want to make sure. And then how many millions of dollars have we saved in paying that off early? Remind us.
We've saved a little over $30 million.
$30 million?
Yes, ma'am. Okay. This past go-around. And when you add up the refundings over the past 5 years, it's closer to $40 million that we've saved. We also wiped 2 years off the amortization.
So we've saved about $40 million in all the efforts we've had.
Over the past 5 years, yes, ma'am.
And taxes are going down?
Taxes went down a record 9 pennies almost this year, and yet we're still in a position where we're paying off debt early. Yes, ma'am. That's correct.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Okay, goal 1B, we're going to focus on financial, economic, and facility planning and forecasting. And obviously, this sort of focuses on the inevitable. I mean, we know we're up 520 students this year, which is the largest single season, I almost said, single year growth that we've had in approximately 13 years. And so we know the developments are coming. We've already secured an elementary site at the Autobahn. But it's important for us to be on the forefront of that. And if we're going to maintain our financial stability and strive for betterment, we must be on the front end. And so we think we've done some things to prepare for that by securing land. We also created a position for a long-range planner, which basically is an in-house demographer who came to us from New Caney ISD and had been serving in that capacity for many years. So we believe we're on the front end of that, and we're obviously planning and constantly looking at our land situation and building capacity as well. Again, it's not something that we necessarily ever lose sight of. It's just something that's becoming more and more important because of the inevitable growth that we're going to see. Okay, any questions on that? And finally, goal 1C, we're going to continue to enhance financial transparency. We know that one of the largest indicators of bond election outcome is trust in district officials. So we think of no better way to promote that than continuing to be financially transparent. So we've made some recent strides. In the past, we created a business office financial transparency webpage. We were awarded the TASBO Purchasing Award of Merit, the Texas Comptroller Transparency Star for Finance, and the Transparency Star for Debt Obligations most recently. And so we're going to continue to pursue all of those awards that are available. There's one more that we're going for that's under Purchasing and Procurement through the Texas Comptroller. And at that point, we will have maxed out the possible awards. But I think the board knows, but anyone who wants to find out anything financially about the district can go to the district's webpage. We have as much information as any district webpage. So again, not necessarily anything that's brand new because we've made some good strides, but we are going to obviously need to continue to focus on transparency. Okay? And so that, in short order, is a first view for you guys. Again, obviously, we'll take feedback and direction prior to adopting these after Dr. Bullock and Dr. Garza do their presentations next month. Any questions on any of those at this time?
Okay. At least currently and in the near future, I know you had mentioned that the only way to increase revenue is by increasing the number of students with the state, the way the state financials are.
Yes, ma'am. Other than voter-approved tax rate.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
And do we see that, what you're hearing is that's the same in the near future?
Well, it is for the next 2 years.
Yeah.
I mean, we're under the current funding system for the next 2 years, and so it'll be interesting to see what happens the following biennium.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, tax rate compression cannot be sustained for an extended period of time. And so in terms of what the legislators are going to do with that, I mean, it will be interesting, to say the least, what happens in the next biennium. But going back to I guess just quickly to the voter-approved tax rate, right now, and we've talked some about this, we are relying heavily on formula transition grant, which expires at the end of this current biennium, which means on the surface we will lose about $1.5 million via that funding source alone. So, assuming all things equal with enrollment, we would be looking at a decrease 3 years from now of approximately $1.5 million. Now, again, the good news with that is with the removal of the formula transition grant, that voter-approved tax rate thing really kicks in to help us. They still have the entire system built to drive folks to tax as high as possible. The golden pennies are still out there above the current 87 cents that we're at. And so anyhow, that's something to look at. But yes, ma'am, that is the system that we're under for the next 2 years.
Eric, do they ever come back and look at, I know we've talked about it in here, that our students, for whatever reason, we don't get as much money for our students as districts right next door to us get for their students. Do they ever come back and look, does the state ever come back and look at that, or is that just etched?
Yes, sir, Mr. Adcox, and obviously with HB3 a couple years ago, the primary focus was increasing everyone. And, there were winners and losers in that, and unfortunately, we were not one of the winners. Will they look at it? Yes, but will they increase equity? It's difficult to do because of the cost. I mean, in all likelihood, what they would do would be to increase a basic allotment, which is the per funding student, so everyone wins. But no, and to your point, that's an excellent question, as it relates to the possibility of voter-approved tax rate. I mean, we know that we are funded at a much lower level than the average district in the state of Texas, to the tune of about $13 million when you add that up. So will they look at it? Yes, sir. I mean, equity and adequacy has always been looked at, but it is a large boat to steer, and in particular with their focus a few years ago of HB3 of increasing everyone, it may be a long time before there's any real adjustments there.
And that's a formula at the state level, so we have no impact on that.
That's
for our
correct.
district.
We are living under the state system.
So if we wanted to get that $13.5 million that we're being shorted, at the moment, we can't do anything with the state.
No, ma'am. That's simply, well, it's the way it is.
It's the way it is. So it's the way it's really the way the state formula is.
It is, and I mean, it's somewhat ironic that a district such as us, and we're not very dissimilar versus Tomball and Montgomery as well.
Yeah.
You look at districts that many years ago were viewed as being wealthy because of our wealth per student. Under the new HB 1525 with tax rate compression and the inability to generate any additional revenue other than new students, I mean, and the fact that we were not a winner under HB3, yeah. I mean, we're funded at the bottom tier versus the state of Texas. So.
It's a shame.
And that's why I say, at some point, I mean, not at some point, but continually, we have to do everything we can to minimize our expenses, non-instructional, and also to go get more money when we have the opportunity. Any other questions?
So I think Eric has done a pretty good job of capturing where we've been in this goal and some of the other things we've kind of discussed in it. But if you have some other ideas about what we might want to include in that, certainly as we continue this discussion over the next few meetings, we can swing back to the financial part of that, and you want to touch base with Eric about any of those, and we can make any modifications, and then at the final meeting, we'll approve all of them. So please, if you got some other ideas, let's get them and captured, in that before we wrap it all up.
And please feel free to email or call.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay.
I wish they could get to see her make her first vote. But y'all are probably, you're not gonna let us vote now, are you? We're just gonna adjourn, aren't we?
Yeah, we just adjourn. When we come back, though.
If you want me to, I'll take a picture of her when she actually gives her first vote, because it'll be after executive session.
But you'll have to be really quick on the draw, because that's the one that says we get to go home. So
Dasha, you have some guests here in the family. Would you like to introduce them? We'd certainly like to recognize them here tonight.
I'm new to all this. I have my family, my husband Patrick Owens and my daughter Ava Owens and my son Drake Owens here tonight. I'm proud that they could be here. Drake's very active, Ava is too, with the day off. It helped having the meeting tonight. And then I have a great group of friends that came out tonight to support through connections, whether teaching or MEF or neighbors. Anyway, you can see in the second row, great people. Thank you for coming.
All right. All right, at this time, the board will now recess to move into closed executive session for the purposes permitted by pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071. Board will consult with its legal counsel regarding issues arising from pending grievances. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.071, consultation with attorney. Pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.072, discussion of purchase, sale, exchange of value of property. And pursuant to Texas Government Code 551.074, personnel discussions, recommendations. All right, I'm going to need a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
I make a motion.
Dasha makes a motion, seconded by Christy. Everybody else?
Hold on, let me get my camera.